There, it's done. Anyways, I want to thank you all for coming tonight and joining me. I've prepared a little presentation for you. I usually do a general one for people who are interested in the MD program, but this I changed for you guys because I wanted to kind of talk more about the things that you can do now because you're finishing high school and you are at a serious advantage in this case because you can plan early, and that's one of the most important things that you can do. So in this presentation, I'm mainly focusing on things you can do now rather than the intricate details of the admissions process. One of the reasons for that is because things can change over time. Especially with our processes, we have had some changes over the last few years, and the things that I'm telling you now will probably be the same, but there might also be some stuff that are different. So, I mean, it's really just about doing what you can now so that regardless of what the circumstances are in a couple of years, you'll be prepared. And just to note, my awesome 5-year-old daughter is here. I had a babysitter, but there was a positive COVID case, unfortunately, in her kindergarten class. So we had to make some alternative arrangements. So if you hear a kid running around, it's her. Okay, so I am going to share my screen here for you. And you can see the presentation. Just give me one moment. Here we go. Hopefully you guys can see my screen and my PowerPoint. And I did it so that we could still see each other's faces if anyone else wants to show their face. If not, no pressure, that's fine. I don't mind being the only one. But let's get started on this now so I can go through everything with you guys. And also, if you have questions, you can write them down in the chat. I can't see them right now while I'm doing the presentation, but I will address any questions that you might have afterwards. So ask whenever you want. I'll go through them in chronological order. And if you have anything else that you want to ask me afterwards, that's completely fine. I can be here as long as you need for a Q&A. So let's get started. So this is overview of MD admissions for the faculty information night. My name is Claire Iden. I am the MD admissions advisor for the Cumming School of Medicine here at the University of Calgary. So there's a little bit of general information that I did leave for you guys, just to talk a little bit about the program. I know some of you might be curious about kind of what makes the U of C MD program stand apart from others. And one of the main things is that it is a 3-year MD program versus a 4-year program. Now, that doesn't mean that there's less work. It is still, it is still basically the same amount of work as a 4-year program, but it's condensed, it's intensive. There's not a 4-month break in the summer. In fact, we start in July, but there are shorter breaks throughout the year. So it's just a different format basically. And a lot of people do like the fact that it's 3 years. If somebody wants to be a doctor, they generally want it sooner rather than later. So that's kind of something special about our program. So on average, there's about 155 seats. It does vary. There have been less in the last few years. And just to kind of give you an idea as to how competitive the program is, this year we got almost 2,000 applicants. And some of these seats are for people who deferred from the previous year or people coming from, master's research program that we have. And so 85% of the seats are reserved for Albertans. It is the requirements are much higher for out-of-province applicants. And we don't take international students at this time. So if people have permanent residency, that's fine. Also refugee status, that is also fine. But just if you're an international student, you wouldn't be eligible. International degrees are fine, however. So the application opens at the beginning of July and it closes on October 1st. We've got 3 months for you guys to submit your application. That being said, there's always people every year who are starting their applications 2 days before the deadline and trying to submit them. And oftentimes it doesn't really work out. So, I mean, this is the thing that I'm going to say over and over this evening. And it's that preparation is everything. From today, if you're interested in joining the MD program, to when you're filling out your application, when you've gotten to the point where you're actually eligible to apply. And like I mentioned earlier, classes start in July. So that's different. I mean, usually university classes start in September. And for us, we're a little bit early. Now, I just want to let you guys know as well, we are under undergraduate medical education. That's kind of the umbrella department. There are other faculties and departments within that, and I don't know anything about those. So I'm not familiar with the Bachelor of Health Science program, which is the one that I put in this little disclaimer at the bottom. One thing that I can say, a lot of people like to take the Bachelor of Health Science program if they want to go into medicine. But you know what? It doesn't necessarily give you a guarantee, and it doesn't give you a leg up over others. It's just something that is somewhat of a natural precursor. So if you have questions about BHSC or any other, departments underneath undergraduate medical education, unfortunately, I can't answer those questions for you. So another quick kind of more general bit of information for you. So who is eligible? Those who are Albertans need a 3.2 GPA. That's not a super duper high GPA. I think that's probably about a B-. I don't know if you see this little notification on my screen, but it says my internet connection is unstable. So fingers crossed you don't lose me. If you do, I'll be right back. You need to write the MCAT as well. So that's the exam that is standardized. Everybody needs to write it no matter what, but there's no minimum score that we need. Also, you need to have completed 2 full-time undergraduate years. Yes, that's right. As of right now, you don't need to have a completed degree. You can apply with just 2 years under your belt. That being said, the statistics are much higher for people getting in with completed bachelor's degrees. But at least, can kind of give you a head start. That might change down the road though. So just as a heads up as well, don't bank on that. We might keep it, we might not. I'm not exactly sure, but it has been discussed a little bit in the recent past. So for non-Albertans, and I don't think that really applies to any of you, you need a 3.8, that's much higher. And honestly, that is kind of the competitive GPA regardless. So, I mean, try to aim for that anyways, even if you're an Albertan. That's a high GPA, and, GPA is just one part of the application, but it's kind of something, if you have that under control and you're reaching your goals, you can really focus on other things. And there is an MCAT minimum score on one section, and that is 128. I'm not going to get into the details of the MCAT or anything because it is too early for us to worry about those things. Now, there are no prerequisites or preferred degree. I get asked that question every single day, and I can't answer it for you. I think if you're going to do kind of one preference-based thing, like if you have a couple of options that you want to explore and you're really not sure, try to do something that challenges you. That doesn't mean it has to be a mathematics degree. It might be something else that challenges you. Maybe a language program, or we get a lot of engineering students, even people who have done arts, like a BA in psychology, for example. But just try to do something that is challenging. And that's true. We're not just telling you that. It is actually true. Like I said, the BHSC program is a natural precursor, but again, you don't need to have that in order to be a strong applicant. Okay, so a couple of helpful hints for you. We don't look at your high school marks. So, don't worry about it. We're not going to see them. You're going to use those to get into your undergraduate program. but not for us. We are technically an undergraduate program as well, but we're not a direct entry undergraduate program. So what that means is you have to have some undergraduate schoolwork in a different program before you can think about applying with the MD program. So your advantage is that you can plan ahead. The most kind of common thing that I see is people who decided later in life that they wanted to attend med school and they have to kind of backtrack and upgrade their courses. Maybe they didn't go full time, so they have to get some years of schoolwork in to get a full-time status. You know, they might not have the time to study for the MCAT. Those people are still very valuable applicants, don't get me wrong. We value life experience as well, but it's just, you know, it's nice if you use your time effectively and efficiently. So I see that we've got a chat. I can't see it right now, but I will check these after just as a reminder. So just keep asking if you've got questions. I'll see them afterwards. So for you guys, I made a little academic to-do list. So yeah, again, I mentioned this earlier. Choose an undergraduate major you're genuinely interested in. It shows if you care about what you're learning about in school. Of course, aim to maintain a high GPA. That being said, we've admitted applicants with the minimum GPA requirement of 3.2. They will have had more extraordinary applications in other sections though. So it would be kind of like there's something extra special about your application that we've never seen before. Maybe the reviewer has flagged your application for the alternative admissions process. That is a process you would have no idea if you were flagged for that. But reviewers can actually do that if they see your application and they see something really special and unique. Maybe you've gone through some, you know, great adversity in your life, and it's just something that has shown your strength and resilience as a person. And you know, you might not have a competitive GPA. So we've admitted people with 3.2s, but it's not as common. So really important thing, make sure the minimum of 2 years that you're applying with are full-time. So full-time by what we require, not regular full-time requirements. That's usually 3 courses per term. That's not full-time for the MD program. You have to take at least 4 courses per term. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The reason we put such an emphasis on full-time status is because it is a condensed, intensive 3-year program. So, you know, we want you to demonstrate that you can handle a full course load. And also anything that you take after April, so any spring or summer courses, are not calculated in your GPA. If you want to fast track your degree, that's up to you, but just be aware that anything that you've taken during those months, we're not going to calculate it. It's not going to be counted. So I added this little section at the bottom. You know, don't be, oh, my internet connection is unstable again. Don't be concerned about taking a year off. If you withdraw from a course, that's okay. You know, things happen, we get that. Sometimes, you know, you might have a tough year, you might need to take a little bit of a break. That's not going to reflect badly. It's life. Now, one thing that would be a concern is if your transcripts were full of W's. So you withdraw all the time, it might show some kind of inconsistency. You know, you have inconsistent behavior, or you can't kind of stick to your goals, but things happen. So some gap years are fine, and just little things like that. Don't worry too much. You know, it's if something happens in your life that doesn't reflect on who you are as a person, it's just all about taking care of yourself. And the MD program is super competitive. We don't want people to be overextending themselves and putting themselves in, you know, a bad situation just to give themselves a chance to get in. Okay, so here's my non-academic to-do list for you to start considering. So consider your extracurriculars. That is the whole other half of the application. One half of the application is the academic section. The other half are the non-cognitive attributes. So that are things like your work experience, your extracurriculars, in whatever shape they come in. So are you an athlete? Are you an artist? Do you do some kind of volunteer work? Do you work? Like, you know, not everybody has the opportunity to not work and they have to have a job. So that would be considered within this as well. So if you're doing something right now and, you know, keep it up if you can, it's good to show that you're committed and dedicated to one thing. We would rather see that you've been committed to something over time than that, you know, there's a whole bunch of things that you've done for a couple of months here and there. So a long list doesn't necessarily mean a good list. So yeah, I think you guys probably know this, but I always put it, you know, out there anyways. If you're volunteering, make sure it's reputable and genuine. There are volunteerism trips where you can go to a developing country and do a good deed, but it's really just a vacation. I know there was one I heard once, I don't know if this is true, a volunteerism company where they would actually go to a developing country or a village and build a school. Then they would just take it down after the trip was over so that the next people could come and build another school. So, you know, they do, the reviewers look out for stuff like that. Just don't do it. Yeah, and if you have to work, that's valuable as well. Again, you don't need to, like, do what you can, right? But don't overload yourself. Burnout's not good. Going into an MD program burnt out, it's not a good thing to do. So we do value athletics. We have lots of athletes who apply. We've had Olympians apply, and one actually just recently completed the program with us. If you're an artist, we have got lots of musicians, people who do, you know, dance, visual arts and stuff like that. I mean, all that stuff is valuable because what has been found in recent years is that just having a strict science background doesn't mean you're going to be, you know, that's not an indicator of what makes a good doctor. You should be somebody who's contributing to a diverse class, diverse as individuals, and also with what your interests are. It doesn't have to be hard sciences. So essentially we are reasonable. And that really leads into the fact that perfection is not necessary. Integrity and honesty is. There's not a grid that you need to fill. There's not a bunch of boxes of this is right and this is wrong. This is what we want. This is what we don't want. It's not like that. We give you the opportunity to show us why we should, you know, why you would make a good doctor, why we should offer you a seat in the program. And that could be anything really. It's nice to see unique individuals. And one of the focuses of ours that has been, you know, on the forefront in more recent years is trying to have a more diverse class that is representative of, you know, more people. So, you know, be genuine. Let us get to know you. There really are no prerequisites. I already covered this, but you're not required to do science and math. Sometimes taking the courses in the sciences and the maths kind of help with the MCAT. You know, people are often concerned that they may not have the academic background to successfully write the MCAT exam. I'm pretty sure it's an 8-hour-long exam. And so, you know, it's pretty hard. That's, you know, it can be helpful, but people have studied independently for it and have done well. So again, try to challenge yourself. Don't take, you know, the easiest degree out there. Some are easy. I don't know which ones. I can't list to you. You know, people, we kind of give them made up courses like the underwater basket weaving as the example. It's not a real thing, but if it's something as fluffy as that, then maybe, you know, it actually sounds hard, I'll be honest with you, but you get what I mean. So yeah, if you're enrolled in a program that you enjoy, you're going to perform better as a student. You're going to have a higher GPA. You're going to be more involved. You know, it might inspire you to get involved with your school more. And yeah, it's just a win-win situation. So that is my only advice really with what program should I choose? Choose something that you like. You might not know what you like, I think that there is never the right decision. You just kind of have to make a decision and stick with it. And you know what? No, that's not true. You can change your mind, but just make a decision. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some resources. At this point in time, because you're able to plan things a little bit, you can, look at the resources that are out there and available to you. One of them is the Pathways to Medicine Scholarship. Now, it's not me who administers this or counsels on this really, so I can't give you a ton of information, but this is info that I took off of the Pathways to Medicine Scholarship website. And you can do a web search, a Google for it, if you want to learn more. So this is a scholarship program available to grade 12 students to support diversity and underrepresented groups throughout Alberta. So you have to become a U of C student. We do take students from all different kinds of institutions, including other ones in Calgary, such as Mount Royal, but it looks like this particular scholarship, you need to be a student at the U of C. So there are deadlines. It looks, from what I saw when I was reading on the webpage, the deadline to apply for the Pathways to Medicine program is March 1st. Don't quote me on that. Go have a look for yourself. There are deadlines to apply, and I think even just express your intent. And successful applicants, actually, I think at that point, you have to be invited to apply. So there's an initial process, you express your intent, and then you're invited to apply. And I think kind of it's a 2-layer process. So this is a really good program because it endeavors to bring underrepresented individuals into the program, maybe people who are from rural areas and, people who are at, a financial disadvantage and may not have the funds or the ability to afford medical school. It's, funded, there's funding there, and it also helps you and supports you throughout your undergraduate degree in order to be able to successfully get through the MD program. So I think that there are certain kind of criteria that you have to fulfill if you were to be awarded this scholarship. But from what I've seen, it's a really amazing opportunity, and it has brought some awesome people into the MD program that otherwise would not have gotten in just because of socioeconomic barriers that they face. So yeah, have a look at this. It might be of interest to you, and see if it's something that you want to pursue further. We also have our Indigenous Health Program. So if I have any Indigenous students here, this is for you. And it is, I wrote the mission and program objectives. I took the mission from the webpage, I quoted it there, and it's to support Indigenous learners and issues faced by Indigenous people in the healthcare system and in our institution. And it does provide support for potential applicants, and then also for active applicants. So before, during, and after, the after being when you're actually a med student. There are lots of resources for funding, and they help you get set up with that kind of stuff. And then what was at the bottom? Yes, there are a number of funding opportunities. There is something also, there's an opportunity for all med students to learn about Indigenous medicine. And so I think, I'm not sure if that's something that is mandatory, but it should be. Because that's something that, of course, we always need to work on being better at. So although this applies to Indigenous students, it also applies to everybody in this aspect. So the training for Indigenous health. So yes, I put the webpage here where I was quoting the mission. You can also give it a web search. The Indigenous Health Program for the Cumming School of Medicine at the University of Calgary, if you're interested in learning more. Okay, so I left the FAQs in my presentation as I usually do. I see there's a couple of things in the chat. I'm not sure if they're questions or not. I will take a look after I'm done sharing my screen. and answer you or talk to you about that. But yeah, is it hard to get in? Is the first question. And yeah, it's hard to get in. I gave you the figures, almost 2,000 applicants this year. And I think there was probably more around 135 spots that were available. So it's very competitive. Now, what makes a strong application? So this is pretty basic and it's closer to when you actually apply, but you can think about these things now and apply them to your circumstances. So I say, read the manual. That means for you right now, plan ahead. You can read the manual now. It actually would probably be really useful for you to do that. Things can change down the road, but this will give you a really kind of good introduction about what you can expect in the future. Be organized, have a plan, respect the deadlines. That shows that you're a responsible person, first of all, and you're going to set yourself up for success. Success doesn't mean you're going to be guaranteed a spot in the program, but it just means that you're probably going to reach your goals eventually. Sometimes it takes a few tries. So you are showing us what a strong application looks like. Like I said earlier, there's not a grid, there's not a bunch of check boxes that you can mark off and say, okay, I got 10 out of 10, I'm probably going to get in. There are a lot of people who do that when they apply and they're not offered a spot. So it's just, show us what's special about you. And the time that you have after you graduate is probably a time where you're going to start figuring that out. So yeah, we want to know about you and your unique traits. Now, the next thing, I applied and I didn't get in. Can I get some feedback? We can't give you any feedback. It is subjective. So, I mean, there are academic statistics that is not subjective, that's subjective. The statistics are released by our assistant dean annually. But the other stuff, we can't really share it with you. I mean, the way to look at it is you're competing. If you apply one year and you don't get in, and you apply the next year, you're not competing against everyone else. You're competing against yourself from the previous year, because every year is just a different group of people that you're competing against. So yeah, what improves your application? It may be a personal thing. It might be really obvious. You might have a really low GPA and you need to raise it. But again, that still doesn't give you a guarantee. That being said, when I used to be able to bring med students to in-person presentations pre-COVID, most of those students had to apply several times before they were offered a seat in the program. And what they have all said to me is, yes, it's so disappointing to be rejected. It feels awful. They've cried, you know, and reflected on their lives. They came back the following year, and they applied, but they didn't get in again. They went through the same process. They finally got in and they look back and said, I am a better medical student and I will be a better doctor because I was rejected those first few times, because it forced me to do better. And, you know, you might not believe that, but it's true. I've heard more than one person say it. So yeah, I mean, if you don't get in the first time, it can still be meant to be. And keep a healthy relationship with your desire to get in. One question we ask on the application is, what is your plan B if you don't get in? Have a plan B. I mean, it can be that you want to go back to medical school and blah, blah, blah. Your plan might not be, oh, I'm just going to give up on this dream and not do, you know, just not think about it anymore. But you should have something else that you want to do in the meantime that's important to you. And if you decide that, okay, if I don't get in, I'm going to go down this completely different path, tell us about it. That's okay. The question is there just to kind of encourage you to consider that you should have a plan B. So is this the end? Yes, we've reached the end of my presentation. So I've left some information here for you, my name, my email address, our general office phone number, some links to our website. Now, like I said, at this point, it is a little early. You can definitely give me a call, get in touch with me with any questions you might have, but things might change by the time you're ready to apply. So it might be a little early, but you're always welcome to talk to me. So I'm gonna just go out of here and stop sharing my screen. So just give me a moment. I'm gonna take a look at the chat and I'm gonna answer your questions. So let me just go up to the top here. Just give me a second. Okay, Suk. So your question was a direct message. Is it okay if I answer your question to the crowd? Because I think that it's kind of, I don't need to get into everything, but you're asking about nursing. And we have actually tons and tons of applicants who come in from nursing programs, along with, I mentioned the Bachelor of Health Sciences a bunch of times because it's connected to the undergraduate medical education department. Nursing is also kind of a natural precursor. We don't have prerequisites. So the courses that you would take in your nursing program would be fine. Now, in our manual, and this confuses a lot of people, so I'm still answering your question, Suk. There is a list of recommended courses, but that's not courses that you should take. It's courses that if you need some direction, you really don't know, like people who are going to Athabasca University, for example, to do some upgrading, they're going to take open studies. What should I take? We have those listed there to kind of show that we value breadth and diversity in your academics. So a wide variety of courses is good. And also the courses that we listed on that page, I think it's page 47 or something, I could be wrong, it's close to the end of the manual. It's lists courses that could also be helpful for the MCAT, for studying for the MCAT. So, I mean, people will study with study literature provided through the organization that is the governing body and administers the MCAT exam. Or people sometimes like to take coursework if they're really worried that they're not going to do well in it. So we don't have prerequisites. We list some suggested courses, but if you're in the nursing program, then you can just be in the nursing program. I'm going to give one warning about the nursing program though. We know that there's always practicum placements in a nursing program. Practicum placements are pass-fail courses. Now, one of the really important requirements that I went through close to the beginning of my presentation was that we need full-time coursework. So to kind of break that down further, we need 24 credits minimum. That averages out to 8 courses, 8 3-credit courses throughout the fall and winter. However, 18 out of those 24 credits need to be graded. The other remaining credits, they can be pass-fail, so those can be your practicum placements. Now, sometimes your schedule is put together in a nursing program in such a way that you might always be a graded course short of meeting that full-time requirement, and you might not have enough full-time years to apply. You only need 2 full-time years. So if you have 2 years where you have at least 18 graded credits, and the remainder of the 24 total credits required between September and the end of April, if the remainder are pass-fail in your practicum placements, that is totally okay. But that's one of the really important things that is a really good example of why it's important to plan ahead. You have the opportunity to do that right now. If you can plan your nursing course schedule ahead of time and make sure that you're meeting that minimum requirement, then you'll be in good shape. So yeah, you shouldn't need to take additional courses, but if you have some control over your schedule, then that's something that you should really try to pay attention to. And also read the manual where we talk about full-time studies so that you can really understand what it means. I explained it pretty good, but it also is quite confusing, I know, so I might not have been as clear as I should have been. So Koji, I have a direct message from you too. And I guess I'm recording the session anyways, so you're all going to be able to read these regardless. I'm just reading your question, so bear with me for a moment. Okay. All right, so your question is about if you get some work experience, pay back some student loans, apply a little bit later down the road, a couple years into your nursing career. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, yes, I'll put my email address in the chat for all of you. You can all write it down. Sorry, I got another direct message. So yeah, I think that's a wonderful idea, Koji. I mean, we definitely value work experience. One thing to note is we have a lot of people apply who are currently nurses and do have work experience. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a unique perspective, but it's certainly valuable. I mean, having experience as an RN will definitely give you, more valuable stuff that you can put in your application. It'll give you some perspective into healthcare. So, I think that there's nothing about your plan that wouldn't help you and wouldn't be a good idea. If that's something you really want to do, then I definitely encourage you. And I just want to make sure that I am not missing any part of your question. So yeah, I mean, I think that if you start as an RN and become a doctor, you definitely have a way better perspective about working with your team. A doctor who was a nurse is probably going to work with nurses better than a doctor who wasn't. I mean, that's an assumption on my part, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think that's a logical assumption. So I don't think that you're wrong in that. Okay, Ravina. So what makes it harder to get in with 2 years of undergrad versus a completed undergraduate degree? It's just probably more about experience. You have more education under your belt. You're more educated with 3 years or 4 years than you are with 2 years. So I do not know the metrics of it. I'm not a file reviewer. The statistics are, I think, 20-something% get in with 2 years. It could be even lower than that. It could be much lower than that. But I won't open the manual to find out now, just considering time. It's just, I think, about experience at the end of the day. I don't think you're going to be docked points for having only 2 years. You're eligible to apply. People with 2 years get in every year, but I think it just boils down to experience. I think it looks a little bit better if you have that undergrad under your belt. And I mean, consider the fact that we also have a lot of graduate students, people with masters and PhDs apply, which gives them an advantage. One thing I will say about the 2 years is it allows you, if you are in a situation where you can apply multiple years in a row, I mean, there's a $150 application fee. I understand that not everybody has the ability to just apply for all these medical schools every year. It can get expensive, but if you're in a situation where you're able to do that, you're using your time efficiently. If you don't get in after 2 years, you haven't really wasted any time. You will go back for your 3rd year and then apply again if you can. You're going to be, you have that extra year of your degree under your belt. So, that is an advantage. And then after you've completed your degree, you can apply again. And then you'll be applying with a completed bachelor's degree. So then you'll kind of be in that higher, a higher chance in those, higher percentages of acceptance because you've got a completed degree. So if you have a background, Paul, I'm answering your question now. If you have a background in business administration, can you get into medical school? Absolutely. We do actually have a lot of people apply with business backgrounds. I think that it's definitely a field of study that can have a good contribution to the field of medicine as well. One thing about my job that I find really interesting is understanding and learning how different fields of academics intersect. And really, that would be a contribution to the field of medicine. You can certainly apply. We have lots of people from business backgrounds apply. You're very welcome, Koji and Robina. Is there any other questions for me? I'm going to put my email address. I mean, I'm not in any rush to go anywhere. You're welcome, Paul. But I'm going to put my email address if you want to get in touch with me. I will be away for a little while. I will be away from November 14th to December 7th, but I'll have my computer and, you know, I can probably answer some really important questions if you have any during that time. So yeah, if you want to write down my email address, you can. The number that I gave in the PowerPoint is just our general office line. We actually are a really small team in admissions. We have our assistant dean, Dr. Paniccioni. He actually really loves to usually do high school outreach. So I'm really surprised that he let me do this tonight. I was really excited about it. I think he just really likes talking to you and inspiring you, but he does do a lot of other things. And if you're interested in medicine, you'll get to know him. We have Dr. Rabia Jalil, who's our Associate Director of Admissions. And so, you know, our two kind of bosses, and then there's 3 of us in the office aside from them. So if you call the main line, any of us can really answer your questions and help you. And right now we just finished, our cycle closed on October 1st, and we just finished processing probably about, I would say, 7,000 transcripts. So that between 3 people is a lot of transcripts. So we're just kind of closing that up, and it's quiet, and I'm really happy that I could be here with you and do something different after looking at transcripts for a couple months straight. Okay, so just looking at the chat, like if anybody wants to ask me anything, you can ask me, you know, with your voice, or you can message me again and I can answer your question. But if not, then, oh, Zoe, well, let's see, maybe I actually, oh, you know why? Because I sent it to Paul. I thought I clicked on everybody, but I actually didn't. So none of you got my email except for Paul. Sorry, folks. That's actually something I do frequently when I'm in a Zoom meeting. I'll direct, or I'll ask the whole group a question that I'm just trying to ask one person. So you should all be able to see my email address now. Thanks for letting me know, Zoe. So I'll give you a second to write that down. Again, this is being recorded. So you can watch it again. It's being posted to the YouTube. I did give you a lot of, you know, not, you know, kind of confidential information. I give you a lot of important insider information that you can start thinking about now, because the biggest advantage that you have is the opportunity to plan ahead. And I can't stress enough how important that is. Even if you didn't get awesome grades in high school, this is a fresh start for you. You can really motivate yourself at this point to go to medical school. I mean, another thing that I recommend, I think we have an awesome program. Medical school is competitive. I just want you guys to be successful. If you can apply to more than one school, apply to more than one school. Everybody does it. It doesn't offend me if you apply at other schools. So just something to keep in mind. And they all have different requirements. So our requirements are going to be different from the U of A, University of Manitoba, McGill, UBC, et cetera. We all have different sets of requirements. You're welcome, Sam Josh. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I'll leave it at that. and I will let you all go for the evening. And again, I just want to thank you for being here with me tonight. I always like sharing this kind of stuff with you guys and, just showing you that I'm here as a resource. And anything that you want to know, just, you know how to get in touch with me now that I put my email address in the proper chat. So thanks again, everyone. I want to wish you all a good evening, and I'm going to stop the recording now. So